Good afternoon on what is a cool, bright and sunny day. It is Friday, November the 25th. I am in the reading Nook with a nice hot cup of tea. And a parcel I am continuing to unbox. And what I'm going to pull from here is, let's have a look, done that, okay. Is this Maelstrom Domesday Investigators Guide. This is published by Arion Games and is the player's guide to the setting for Maelstrom Domesday. Okay, Maelstrom Domesday is the new incarnation of Maelstrom, the classic RPG from 1984. The core rulebook contains everything needed to play, but this player's guide is the perfect introduction and reference to both the rules and the setting. Offering a commentary view on character creation, the game rules, magic and religion, this book will help a completely new player quickly master the game rules. The included complete setting guide will prove an invaluable reference either before or during play to the world of 1086. All in all, this book is an easy read and a perfect companion for any player. This book does require the Maelstrom Domesday RPG book to use, as it does not itself contain any of the rules. So, what is Maelstrom Domesday? Well, you have to go back to 1984, and Puffin were riding high with the wave after wave of fighting fantasy books that they were releasing at the time. And they were looking around for other books, and what they picked up was a little game called Maelstrom. Maelstrom is a Tudor set role-playing game doing Queen Elizabeth I's reign, in which you play generally ordinary folk, exploring and adventuring and keeping the realm safe. And it was notable for the complete book, for creating interesting characters with lots of different backgrounds, a very good guide to herbalism of the period, a solo adventure, quite a lengthy solo adventure where you would travel from your hometown to London on the perilous roads of the period, and also an adventure which you or someone else as the game master could run. And also by the fact that the author was, I think, basically in his mid-teens at the time of publication. He's not written anything for the role-playing line since, but it is been licensed to Arion Games, or owned by Arion Games now. And there's a new edition out. It's worth looking at, or you can find an original copy on eBay if you look. But it is available, and you can look at it. But, so, that's the original Maelstrom. What Arion Games has done is taken the setting of all the mechanics and developed it elsewhere. And the first the area in which, or period in which, the publisher did that was Domesday, by which I refer to the book of Domesday, which the relatively recently founded Norman Kingdom of England decided it wanted to record. Essentially, it was a record of everything in the kingdom, everyone who lived in the kingdom, all the towns and villages and so on. From Cornwall to the borders of Scotland and the borders of Wales, London, and so on, and everywhere in between. This is when this game is set. It's set during the period, so like 20 years after the Norman invasion and the crowning of William I, originally William of Normandy, and it's a land that would be for generations to come divided between Anglo-Saxon natives at the time and the Norman invaders, because the Normans would come in, they would build castles and take lands and become the basically the feudal overlords as they did so, replacing the most of the Saxon lords as they did. So the thing is, it's a setting in which there is quite a bit of a social divide, a social tension. At the same time, there are dangers to the kingdom that come from outside, horrors and so on, that someone has to deal with. And as a player character, you may well end up being a Saxon soldier or a Norman knight. You can be a simple peasant, a labourer or a tanner or anything, a merchant or anywhere in between. The rules of designing character creation is designed to create characters that fit the setting. But there are no rules for that in this book. They are in the core rulebook. This, though, presents the setting and content, for the players' accessibility during play. So we've got basically an overview of character creation, and this is done without referring to the tables themselves, which you'll find in the core rules, explaining what the attributes are, like attack skill and missile skill, defense skill, and so on. Will, endurance, and so on, and then we look at racial origins and social class. Explains what the characteristics are, whether that's add a tongue or every man, which essentially it's sort of like a character traits. Got a list of those. And then explaining how to go through the process, how to go through a living. A living is sort of like a stage of your life. It's what your initial sort of career or job is, and how you will progress through that, gaining more skills, or if necessary, finding it out and going and doing something different. And then goes through all of these one by one, starting off with beggar and craftsman, entertainer, groom and herbalist. And so on. Several pages, just giving you an overview of what these are and within the game, and all accompanied by these another sort of pen and ink illustrations. So yeah, we've got so rogue, sergeant at arms, servant, shepherd, trader, wiseman, wise woman, woodsman, and so on. Taking you through the sort of process and before you finish off and have a ready to play character. And then we deal with sort of things like the supernatural and having a patron, because essentially you're not necessarily going to travel very far from where you were born unless you have sort of like a career or a living that calls for it, like a trader or a soldier. So that becomes sort of like you build your life story. Then we have an explanation of sort of like the game's core rules. We're handling things like barter and boat handling and intimidation, so on. Social situations, handling favour and imbalance, and then healing, death, diseases, and herbs. Just like here's how it generally works. There are no rules, but provide you with a basic introduction so you have an understanding. And then we get into combat, explanation of how that works, and so on, and the types of the arms and armour that you might possess, and then looking at giving you an overview of both magic and the Maelstrom, which the Maelstrom is sort of like a force from the outside that is trying to, upset the world, and it's in the nature of society, and the importance of religion, because but for the most part you will be all Christian. This is not to say that there aren't going to be other faiths and peoples abroad in the land, but it's primarily written from that point of view. It's because it's the majority of the people living there. We have a life in 1066, a brief history of England during the period, because obviously not everyone has studied that, and because the thing is, it's sort of like you kind of go from, you study history at school and you kind of go Romans, Alfred the Great, and the Saxons, because essentially he beat the Vikings, and then the next big event is 1066, and everything changes, and everything that sort of like comes sort of like in between tends to get sort of like ignored. So sort of Saxon history sort of like is not particularly delved into. It's not necessarily common knowledge, I would suggest, but when we get into sort of like the nature of government, and so we're looking at manorial lords, villagers, overlords, and the sheriff, and so on. Racial tensions as well, obviously between the English and the French. Position of women, and then we get into law and warfare, because obviously William and his successors would be constantly, at war, putting down rebellions and expanding territory and enforcing their rule. nice plan of a castle, and then we get into, you know, what villages and towns were like in the period. So just general background. It's essentially what you hear is we're getting to what's life like in these places. You know, food, drink, and farming, crafting, all useful information, woodworking, wool and cloth, the importance of them. Clothing and presentation. I mean, that's an interesting social thing. You know, there's several differences. It outlines, you know, here how the Saxons wore their hair, and how the Normans wore their hair. So the Saxons wore their hair long, either down to the collar or even longer. Men with beard and moustache, where the Normans shorter hair and were often clean shaven. So that's another social difference. So we have sections on entertainment and celebration, and then family and education, highlighting sort of like the differences and little details and elements which the player should sort of like be aware of or expect to encounter as part of their play of Doomsday. Travel and trade, and then we've got a price list in case you want to go shopping. Not that you're actually going to have a lot of money in the period, because it's not something that's sort of like you know, people are not earning very much. More background of diverse races of Englishmen, medicine, you know, dealing with physicians and health and diseases. And then we have the quick section of supernatural, and the omens and the church and religions. You sort of kind of covered some of that earlier, but this is from the point of view from the church. And lastly, a glossary. Again, useful. And lastly, of course, the index. So yeah, well, okay, I mean, useful but not absolutely necessary to play, I would suggest. But actually, you know, even if you're a game master for Maelstrom Domesday, this is probably an easier reference to than leafing necessarily through the rulebook. You know, oh, I need to look up something else I've got at this page or something like that. So it's useful to have, even if it doesn't have the mechanical elements in it. But yeah, just sort of a useful reference for Doomsday when you're running it. So anyway, hope you've enjoyed this unboxing in the Nook. If you have, then please do click on the like button down below. And of course, if you've got any comments or feedback, I appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to yet more unboxings in the Nook, where you'll see me out here with a parcel from which I will extract a book or game and chat about it to the best extent of my knowledge, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea. Then please do hit that subscribe button down below. In the meantime, thanks again for watching another unboxing in the Nook. Be back again soon with another one. Bye for now.